Today, you have your last notes of the semester. How exciting! You have made it through a lot of material this year, so let's finish strong this week. This week, we are talking about affirmative and negative words. What does that mean? We will get to that. In this PowerPoint, anything that I really want you to write down, I put in green font. So you're welcome to write down anything or just print off the notes from the link that I gave you, but the most important things I put in green. So let's jump in. What are affirmative and negative words? When do we use them? Well, first off, to make a sentence negative, you just put the word no before the verb. We've talked about this before, you've seen it before, but I wanted to make sure that we started off with that. So I can say ella no habla inglés to mean she doesn't speak English. I cannot say ella habla no inglés. That does not work in Spanish. That does not make sense. Or I could say él no es profesor. I can't say él es no profesor. A lot of people try to do that because in English I would say he is not a professor, and not comes after a verb. But in Spanish, the no has to come first. Okay, this is, I think you've seen this before as well. When the answer to a question is negative, two negative words are required. So if you notice in these sentences, it asks a question, do you speak Spanish? Is Gerardo in the class? Do you always study? And then the response is negative, saying no, I don't do that thing, or no, that thing is not true. So even in English, I'm using two negative words. I'm saying no to answer the question. And then, for example, in this sentence, no hablo español, saying no, I don't speak Spanish. This no corresponds to this no. And then this no in front of hablo corresponds to this don't. So there's no like N apostrophe T in Spanish. There's no apostrophes at all in Spanish. And so if I want to say I don't speak Spanish, I have to say no hablo español. That no hablo means I don't speak. So that all goes together. That's where those two negative words come into play. So it can either be two separate sentences, a no, period, and then the rest of what you wanted to say, or a no, comma, and then the rest of whatever you wanted to say. Either one of those works. Okay, this is probably the most important thing I have to show you today. So pause and jot these down, and then I'll give you some explanation when you come back. Let's talk about these. The left column is the opposite of the right column. So we have affirmative words saying someone, something, some, always. And then we have negative words, nothing, nobody, never, neither. Okay, so algo, something, is the opposite of nada, nothing. Alguien, someone, is the opposite of nadie, for no one or nobody. Or alguien can also mean somebody. It's the same idea. Algún and ningún, it's important for you to know they will have accent marks when they're by themselves, but they can also be alguno, alguna, algunos, and algunas, or ninguno, ninguna, ningunos, ningunas, based on what word comes after it, whether it's masculine or feminine. That's the only one on this list that's going to apply if you're talking about something masculine or feminine. So if you're saying some cookies, the word some has to match cookies, and cookies in Spanish is galletas, which is feminine and plural. So you need to say algunas galletas. We are not going to get too into that. If we were in class, we would have a lot longer to practice with this, but I just have two short activities for you to practice this during this week. And so we're not going to dive too far in. That's just something for you to know. Siempre means always, nunca means never, and I actually think that you have seen both of those words before. Same with the next two words. También means also, and tampoco means neither. I think you've seen both of those before. And O means either or, and ni means neither nor. In English, we use either or maybe more than neither nor, but neither and nor would be the negative ones, and either and or would be the affirmative or the positive ones. So some negative words can be used alone before the verb. We don't have to have an additional no in the sentence. They go right before the verb, just like if I had the word no in the sentence. So nadie habla, nobody speaks, or no one is talking. It's just acting as a normal word in the sentence. A lot of these notes today are really just me explaining vocabulary words, the words never or someone. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's just knowing how to use that vocab word. Another example is él nunca come, he never eats. Or you could say él come nunca, but it does work before the verb here. And then lastly, Alfredo tampoco baila, Alfredo doesn't dance either. But these negative words, notice these are the same sentences, they can also be used with the word no following the verb. So this is something I really want you to understand, this part that I have underlined. It's probably up with being the most important thing with that slide that I just told you had all those words on it. That was the most important thing. This is also incredibly important. Unlike English, we can have double negatives in Spanish, and often it's even required to have double negatives. What do I mean by double negative? In English, I would never say, I don't like that neither. Or I wouldn't say, I don't know nobody. Now, there are people who speak like that. That's fine, but it's not proper standard English that you would want to use in an academic setting. So in Spanish, you do need to do that, and it is proper academic Spanish. I'm not teaching you slang. I'm not teaching you what people would say on the streets. This is just how the Spanish language is. So showing you here, no habla nadie. Now, as I showed you in the last slide, I can just say nadie habla, nobody speaks. But a lot of the time people use two negative words, no habla nadie, nobody is speaking. It literally translates to nobody doesn't speak. In English, if I said nobody doesn't speak, what's happened? It's changed the meaning, right? The negatives cancel each other out and become a positive. If I say nobody doesn't speak, then that means someone is speaking. But in Spanish, it means nobody speaks. If one word is negative, they all have to be negative in the sentence. And we'll see that again, I think maybe in the next slide. Another example, él no come nunca. He never eats. It literally translates to he doesn't never eat, which in English would be if he doesn't never eat, then he would sometimes eat, right? But in Spanish, it translates to he never eats. Alfredo no baila tampoco. He doesn't dance neither. So here we have he doesn't dance either. Okay, sometimes even 3 or 4 negative words occur in the same sentence if. So I said that sometimes in English people will use double negatives, and that is a way that a lot of people speak. Again, it's not standard English, but it is a way that a lot of people speak. If we were to use 3 or 4 negatives in a sentence, it would sound very odd. People do not speak like this. So my examples here, so I told you at the beginning that the green font is for you to jot down, to make sure you jot that down. So starting here, starting on this slide, the blue words are my negative words and the orange words are my affirmative words. In Spanish, we can only have one type of word in the same sentence. So if one word is negative, they're all going to have to be negative. But in English, we mix them a lot. It's not even something we do consciously. It's just something we're used to. But this is something you'll have to get used to. So notice my example sentence, no compro nada nunca. Or I could start out with yo no compro nada nunca. I would translate that in English to I never buy anything. But the literal translation of no compro nada nunca would be I don't never buy nothing. Clearly, that is not a way that most people speak. But in Spanish, one word is negative. I have that no. And so all of my words have to be negative. This nada cannot be algo. Algo means anything or something. But I can't have algo in the sentence because I already have no. So I'm going to go back just a moment. Can't find it. There we go. Everything in that left column and everything in that right column have to stick with things of their own column. You cannot mix the columns. So if I have one word, even just one from that negative column, or if I have the word no in a sentence, I cannot have any words in my sentence from that first column. They just don't mix in Spanish. Okay, so going back, él no compra nada tampoco. I would translate that. He doesn't buy anything either. But notice in my English sentence, I have some blue and some orange words. I have some negative and affirmative words, and I cannot have those mixed in Spanish. So they're all negative in Spanish. My literal translation from Spanish would be, he doesn't buy nothing neither. And the last one actually has 4 negatives. So in English, I translate this, I never see anybody either. but we have affirmative and negative mixed. So the literal translation from Spanish would be, I don't never see nobody neither. Pretty wild. It takes a little bit of getting used to. All right, so just a couple more short things. Unlike English, Spanish does not mix negative and affirmative words. This is what I was just saying, but make sure you write it down. Again, here I have my blue words and my orange words. So in English, I would say Maria doesn't need anything, and I'm mixing my blue negative words and my orange affirmative words. I wouldn't say Maria doesn't need nothing. Not in standard English. But in Spanish, I have to have two negative words. Maria no necesita nada, not Maria no necesita algo. Can't mix them up. And then this is the last thing for you. Alguno and ninguno, they drop the O before a masculine singular noun. So for example, I would not say tienes alguno libro. I know it looks like it would because alguno looks masculine, and it is, and there are other rules that we're not going to dive into this week. We just don't have time, and I'm sure you're not heartbroken about that. If you have specific questions, you're welcome to ask, but I didn't want to give you too much to confuse you. So if it's before a masculine singular noun, we're going to drop the O. So, ¿tienes algún libro? No, no tengo ningún libro. Let's do a bit of practice. So just follow along. You're welcome to pause if you want to think about it before I show you the answer. Here we have comes algo. Are you eating anything? No, no como blank. So in my sentence here, it says, no, I'm not eating anything. But you need to think to yourself, in this sentence, I have a negative word, not, and I have anything, which is an affirmative word. So in Spanish, because I have this no, I cannot have an affirmative word in this box. It has to be from that negative column that I gave you. So the negative version of anything would be nothing. So here we would have nada. Are you eating anything? No, I'm not eating nothing. Has to be negative. It really is going to take a little bit of brain work for you to try to do the opposite of a lot of these things. Just keeping in mind, if there's one negative word in the sentence, the whole thing has to be negative, or at least in that part of the sentence. Okay, next one. Cuando vas a la biblioteca, no voy blank. When do you go to the library? I don't ever go. Okay, so here we have a negative word. That means this has to be negative, even though here this is an affirmative word. Ever. Ever does not mean always, of course, but I would say ever. I would not say never. I wouldn't say I don't never go. I would say I don't ever go, but here it has to be nunca. No voy nunca. And then my last example for you before you do some practice of your own for the rest of the week. ¿Conoces algunas chicas? Do you know any girls, or do you know some girls? No, no conozco a blank chica. Do I need an affirmative word or a negative word? That kind of needs to be the first question you ask yourself. Here, we will need a negative word, even though down below, any is an affirmative word. Doesn't really matter because I have a no in my sentence. So this no is cluing me in. I need a negative word. What is the negative word that corresponds to alguna? It is ninguna. So I don't know any girl literally translates to I don't know no girl, or I don't know none girl. It sounds very odd, but it makes more sense the more you see it in Spanish. That is affirmative and negative words. Please let me know if you have any questions as you're doing your practice this week. Let's finish strong.